Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Eric May, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Renforth Resources, Inc. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Renforth Resources, please click on the Schedule Meetings tab found in the platform navigation bar. You'll be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Nicole Brewster, President and CEO of Renforth Resources, Inc., which trades on the OTCQB venture market with the symbol RFHRF and also on the CSE under the symbol RFR. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me, everyone. I'm here to talk to you about Renforth Resources. I'm the President and CEO, as you were just told, and you were also just told the symbols. They're here on the screen on the CSE RFR, RFHRF on the OTCQB, and actually in Frankfurt, 9RR. You should be cautioned. I'm the President and the CEO. Nothing I say is impartial. You should always do your own due diligence. Nothing here is a solicitation to buy or sell securities. I'm not a licensed investment advisor. You should consult yours if you have one. And further, forward-looking statements are just that. They are not guarantees. There's usually a lot that has to be done before any forward statement becomes true. With that being said, thanks for joining us. So Renforth, where are we? We are in the province of Quebec in Ontario, in Canada. Quebec's the largest landmass province in the country. We are in the near north. We're in the Abitibi, which you see in brown on the provincial map. Quebec has a very supportive government. They're very interested in the critical and strategic minerals and energy transition cycle. Regularly voted one of the top mining jurisdictions in the world. Quebec is a secure province. We do not have jurisdictional risk, which is a very real thing in today's world. If you watch the news, you've seen what's happened in Chile and other jurisdictions with governments wanting a bigger piece of the pie. So, what is Renforth? We're a funky Malartic area play. Malartic is Cadillac and Malartic are townships and towns in Quebec, and we're just on the south side of the Cadillac Break, which is a very prospective structure that stretches from Kirkland Lake in Ontario to Val d'Or in Quebec, which is fundamentally several hundred kilometers. Every couple kilometers, there's a gold mine. Cadillac Break is a deep-seated structure, very prolific, which is of interest to us because we have a gold deposit on the Cadillac Break. In addition to that, we have our Surimo property. Surimo is 330 square kilometers, which was mostly acquired by staking. I added it onto a property we already held. As such, the vast majority, with the exception of a couple claims actually located around where the number one on that map is, the entire property is 100% owned, unencumbered, no NSRs except where the number one is. But that's okay because there's no mineralization where the number one is that we've found yet either. So, why are we talking about this? Well, I started staking all of the areas with the yellow and the blue dots because they represented historical showings. The last work done on that part of the property was in the 1980s. And we added all of this to our copper discovery in the north part of the property. So Surimo is, I think, extremely well positioned to participate in the energy shift and the need for battery metals, in that there are documented showings of gold, all the battery metals, and lithium on the property. So, whoops, wrong button. There we go. What is the one differentiator that Surimo has? What can we brag about that nobody else can? Our logistics. Our logistics are second to none, and I think will ultimately affect in the future, the decision to build a mine, in that it will push the necessary cutoff grades so low. Now, Surimo hosts about 29 kilometers of known and ground truth. That means we've actually gone out and physically touched the metals and proven that they're there and demonstrated continuity over 29 kilometers of our nickel sulfide polymetallic system. 20 kilometers is on a structure we call Victoria, and that goes right across the middle of the property, so it can't get any bigger. And 9 kilometers is on Lalonde, just to the north, which could grow. Why is this important? It's a large-scale low-grade nickel sulfide polymetallic. It benefits from the fact that, as you see in this map, Surimo has road access. We're just south of the northern route of the Trans-Canada Highway. We're directly south of the town of Cadillac, and that's of interest because the power line that goes from the town of Cadillac down to the Rapid 7 hydroelectric generating station to the south of the property goes right through the mineralization. That power line was actually how the mineralization was discovered in the 1940s. Right beside that power line is the road from the town of Cadillac to the hydroelectric generating station. There are also roads that go across the property to the town of Malartic, to our next door neighbor who sets a wonderful precedent for us. It's a 4-kilometer long, 400-meter deep open pit gold mine. The precedent is it's an open pit. The mineralization at Victoria and at Lalonde starts at surface or under very little, like a handful of meters, of overburden. That means that in the future, should the decision be made, Surimo at Victoria and Lalonde would be mined via open pit. It's also important to note that in addition to road access, hydroelectric power, there's nobody living at Surimo. And there's also no major bodies of water at Surimo. Half of Surimo is the designated treaty land of the Pikogan Algonquin community to an hour north. We engage with Pikogan on a commercial basis, hiring them when we have services that they have the capacity to deliver, and they actually have an impact benefit agreement in place with a different property an hour to the north of us, which demonstrates they're open to do business, which is perfect. What else is important about Surimo? Well, our bigger location, the province of Quebec. Province of Quebec is, as I said, it's an excellent jurisdiction. So the logistics, mainly the road, the hydro, no need to move people, and the ability to mine via open pit in an established mining community. You see the mines to the north of us. La Ronde, it's a gold-rich VMS mine. It's the deepest single shaft in North America with the Penna shaft, and Canadian Malartic. There's a whole bunch of mines not on this map, but we're in mining territory. That's how people make that's the way of life. So it's not a foreign concept. It's not a bad word. It's not a bad concept. So every chance of being able to open a mine in the future here, very cost effectively. This slide, I don't read any of my slides to you. You can read. This slide, it shows you some of our stripping we did on Victoria. The rest is the shear zone, and the ultramafic is either side of it. One side's mineralized, one side isn't. But what this slide talks about is the time is now. There's a pivot upon us, the move to store energy via batteries from whatever source. We need to build the batteries. We need to build the EVs. We need to build the windmills. We need to build lots of stuff. All the things we need to build take metal, and we don't have enough metal. We already know we don't have enough metal. Even if every mine that was in the development process right now were to come on stream immediately, we don't have enough metal. However, Canada is putting itself forwards as a source for metals to both the United States under the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as to Europe. We've hosted quite a few visitors and signed some interesting agreements. So I think Canada nationally is poised to benefit, and hopefully our government is also poised to streamline some of the regulation, but that's an entirely different discussion. The other good thing here is, in the midst of this metals market we all see coming, China does not have the metals, so they do not have the ability to crush the market like they have in the past. Whilst they control production, they have to import the raw materials. So, we'll talk about the gold deposit, about Parbec at the end. First, we're going to talk about Surimo some more. Here's a 2012 government survey flown by the Quebec government, and you can see Surimo outlined in black, and the survey doesn't cover the entire property, which is typical because this is a very underexplored property. As I told you, we're on the south side of the Cadillac Break. We're in what's considered the Pontiac sediments. The Pontiac sediments were presumed to not host mineralization, and they're pretty much unexplored. Last exploration was in the 1980s, in fact, when they were exploring what we now know to be a battery metal structure for gold, and that didn't work out. But you can see that structure across the middle of the property. In red, you can see the Victoria structure, and to the north, you can see Lalonde, along with a few other magnetic features, but it's quite interesting how well this structure stands out and was entirely ignored because it didn't really give them any high-grade gold numbers. Here it is again. It's a different presentation of the magnetic data, but you can still see, pardon me, I have a cold, you can still see the structures across the property. That's what we're working on. Victoria, now this is our own geophysics right across the center of the property. You can see Victoria in the middle. The historic exploration in the 1980s happened at Lalonde, Victoria West, and Colony. We now call Victoria West and Colony the Victoria structure. Measures 20 kilometers, as I said. The neat thing we did was we flew an EM survey, which is the boxes and circles in white and pink. When we go to the surface in those locations, we find battery metals. We've ground truthed, we've proven continuity over the 20 kilometers, and the 9 kilometers on the top, you can see is still open. So Lalonde could grow. But honestly, we have a lot on our plate just with the 20 and the 9 kilometers. You see the road going down the center of the property. You can also see in the satellite image, the clear cut where the power line is. So again, the logistics, second to none. We drilled off 2.2 kilometers of Victoria West, and then we stripped in between our drilled area. We thought we were doing it all, and we were looking at one mineralized horizon at Victoria, so we stripped it, and we did determine, it's hard to see in this image, but you can perhaps see where the green dots double up, and under them, the EM anomaly. The Victoria horizon splits in this area and becomes two horizons, and then the end of this past year, when we drilled in December, we found out there's a third horizon at Victoria. So we don't know it all yet. The structure keeps growing. Very much active exploration. We've only drilled less than 10,000 meters we drilled 2.2 kilometers from the road to the west of Victoria. Then we went to the north, 3 kilometers at Lalonde, and we drilled off about a kilometer, a bit less than a kilometer worth of strike. And then this past March, we went back to Victoria, and from the end of the 2.2 kilometers, we jumped another 3 kilometers to the west, and we drilled the western end of the property. You'll see this all later. We drilled off about 750 meters of strike. So we're only scratching the surface. We've only seen pierce point as deep as 160 meters. What that gives us is the nickel phase of mineralization shown in this vertical section with the wiggly blue line. And then we get the polymetallic, which is red and green, the VMS stringers. VMS stringers are giving us, in red and green, they're indicating copper, zinc, also silver and gold. And then we do see an area where the two mix. This mineralized envelope has increased since this particular section was drawn up because we drilled more holes, and we'll continue to drill more holes, and with a bit of luck, things will continue to increase, won't they? That's the plan anyway. So we have seen, I characterize this as large-scale, low-grade nickel sulfide polymetallic. However, we've seen high-grade nickel, and we're not doing any structural drilling or drilling to cover grade or try and chase grade or determine where the traps for the higher grade material are. We're literally still just drilling off structure, trying to figure out, are we in the right place? Are we in the best place? We don't know the answer to that yet. So we have our work to do. Lalonde, we caught both sides of both horizons at Lalonde. We don't think there's anything else. Again, we could be wrong. Here's how the three areas drilled relate to each other. So there's a story I actually completely forgot in the webinar I did earlier this morning. We're also looking for a hidden VMS. We see the ultramafic giving us the nickel, cobalt, platinum group elements, and we see VMS stringers giving us copper, zinc, silver, and gold. The VMS stringers could lead to the VMS, which would be they're blind. You cannot sense or detect a VMS remotely. You have to find it. If we can find the blind VMS body, that'll be a game changer. So we've retained an expert. He was Canada's chief geoscientist for a number of years, and he is credited with developing the exploration techniques. So we'll be delivering to him later this summer data from 3 discrete points, hoping he can vector in better than he was able to when we only had the Victoria data, and he saw some promising indications. So stay tuned on that. Location. You can get this presentation off of my website. Again, I'm not going to read it to you, but you know, nickel, these metals, they're bulky and they're heavy and they need to be converted into chemicals. They need to be moved, and all of these things cost money. So Quebec, there's some very pronounced, there's a free trade agreement, of course, but there's also transit corridors into the United States and into Canada, across the Trans-Canada. Um, and where the resources are is going to play into things. I sent my shareholders on the email list some research or some commentary from Sprott regarding deglobalization. The walls are going back up. The earth is not flat anymore. So the locality of resources is going to come to play. And we're in Canada. I think we're very well positioned. So we have to be cognizant of how we do things in this world. And I think Surimo has every chance of doing things in a very environmentally responsible way with social license from the surrounding communities. And part of the reason I say this is I'm inspired by and I look to a property north of the Arctic Circle in Finland, the Talvivaara mine, which is open pitting 2 pods, and they have a 1 billion ton resource, but their grades are comparable to what we see in our exploration to date, with the understanding that our exploration could change. Numbers, you know, could get better in that we've seen higher grade material in our drilling so far. However, they are processing via heap leach their materials, which is it's a better way to do things. And they're also carrying out the value add and producing battery chemistry, which, of course, the government of Quebec would be very supportive of that in their jurisdiction. So that's the inspiration I look towards. Now, what's next? We're going to put the guys out in the field in about 2 weeks. Once the snow is gone, they're going to be doing some prospecting. They're going to be prospecting the pegmatites we know we have in the bottom portion of the property, in and around the Decelles batholith. We have pegmatites in the sediments. We have pegmatites in the batholith. Right next door is the only spodumene showing in the camp. It's a pegmatite within the batholith, which is an unusual setting. We've never looked. We're going to spend some time looking to see. We know we have rare earths in our pegmatites. We don't know if we have lithium in the pegmatites. Lithium we've seen so far has been in the sediments. Lithium can travel, so we don't know the story yet. So I can't tell you too much about it, except stay tuned. We will be out exploring for that, as well as doing some prospecting on the battery metals showings on Lalonde, etc. So that's coming. Also coming is our results from our drilling in March. So those will be neat to see. And we have a gold deposit. I don't talk much about the gold deposit, but I put it back in the presentation. I remember been doing this a while. I remember when gold had to get to $2,000, and now gold is flirting with $2,000. And I don't know what it's doing now that the U.S. Fed would finally have ruled on. Haven't heard. But nobody cares. Nobody cares about gold right now. Nonetheless, we have an open pit gold deposit with some very high grade or some very long intervals. We made a discovery. You can see on the left of this slide in the gray that that red indicates gold, and it's in the sediments where it shouldn't be. But the Cadillac break bends. There's a splay of the Cadillac break into the sediments on our property, and whenever the Cadillac break moves, neat things happen, and we haven't really followed up on it because we pivoted to Surimo because we're a small team and I'm cheap. So I only pay the guys to do one thing at a time. So they've been working on Surimo. We'll get back to Parbec, or I will monetize Parbec, but the conversations I'm having right now I don't like, so we still have Parbec. Parbec's also very shallow. 80% of the existing out-of-date 43101 resource is above a depth of 300 meters. Our neighbor was the open pit that went down to 400 meters, and they did some mining under the open pit, but they're going now down to open their Odyssey at 1,000 meters depth. It's a very deep camp, and we're like literally on the surface. In fact, just north of us was a property called Tonawanda, mined into the, if memory serves, mined into the 60s anyway. I know I'm wrong. Don't correct me because I know some of the listeners know. However, Agnico Eagle acquired Tonawanda and they found a gold deposit under a closed mine. starting at 800 meters depth. So I know we're very shallow. It presents an opportunity, be it to Renforth or to an acquirer. So we do have a resource. It's out of date. We have drilled 15,000 meters subsequent to this resource and validated 13,000 meters of historical data. I'm going to leave it on this slide. Why invest? Well, it's a 3-cent stock. There's that. It's a great way to get leverage, and it's Canadian. It's safe jurisdiction. I'm a significant shareholder. What my net worth is what my net worth is tied up in Renforth. So, I'm aligned with shareholders. I'm not. This is not a lifestyle job for me. But I do see the opportunity, and that's why I'm still here, and that's why I'm doing this. I've done this. We've got about $2 million worth of securities in the treasury. It's down like everything else. However, it comes from a property I did a maiden resource on and sold. I think we're in a phenomenal location. We have the metals everyone wants. We're in a jurisdiction that's pro-mining. We have every tool we need nearby on a cost-effective basis to move forwards. I have a track record of being able to raise money. I do it over and over again. Never big financings, but I don't want to raise a whole bunch of money and then have to spend it for a number of years. I raise it as I can spend it. I've been able to do that for a while, and I foresee continuing to do that. And the CFO and I don't take any of the cash out of the company. We get paid shares once every 18 or so months. So there you go. That's the rationale. That's really my presentation, and maybe I covered everything, maybe I didn't. You can always go to the website, renforthresources.com, or you can email me, nicole@renforthresources.com, if you have any questions. Now, do people have questions? We do have some questions in here, and I'm supposed to read these to you, then answer them. So I fully expect this could go sideways. Robin. Hi, Robin. What's the level of interest in battery strategic metals by Canadian investors? Are we slow to move? It's hard to say. My shareholders are very cognizant of the potential of Surimo and battery metals. There's an education element. There's a lot more macro factors, but there's not a lot of retail investors out there right now. I was speaking to the president of the CSE last week, and he told me he could tell me to the day the retail investors left the CSE because volumes dropped off. So I think it's just a very interesting time in the market. We've seen a lot of things we never thought we'd see happen. So I don't know that Canadian investors are any slower or faster than any other investor, to be honest. Adrian, if I had, say, 2 to 3 million Canadian to spend, how would it be prioritized? It would be drilling at Surimo. It would be drilling, and it would be the beginning of metallurgical test work. In that, I'm very curious to see if we can replicate the heap leach work, and I do have relationships built to try and chase that information down and access that expertise. So, but fundamentally, we need to drill a lot more, and that is what I would do. Again, Adrian, if you brought in a partner to help, would your preference be a mining company of some sort or an EV battery manufacturer? Honestly, Adrian, I'm agnostic. Money is money, but I think for a mining company, we're still too risky. The mining companies are incredibly risk averse. They ceased exploration outright more than 10 years ago now. And their expectation is, based on conversations I've been having with various mining companies over the last little while, they want things handed to them on a silver platter. I think with regard to battery metals, they're going to miss the mark. They're going to wait too long. And I have been saying for a while that I think vertical integration is going to be what moves this market. Be it battery manufacturers or Stellantis Group, the automobile manufacturers, because we're seeing both move in the market, especially in Europe. The European market, I guess, in terms of investors, but more importantly, in terms of just the pivot, the take up, the development, they're further ahead than we are right now. They're certainly further ahead than the United States is. And you are seeing vertical integration be a driving force there. Adrian again, is there any financial assistance available from provincial or federal government from which we qualify? Well, they put in place the critical minerals flow through credit, which I'm not sure because I haven't been paying attention if it actually got read out and enshrined into law or not. What does that leave me with? Well, flow through funds are the only people really in the market. And when they exit their 4 month money, they do it punishingly. So, does that help? Hard to say. Anything else? I met with the government of Quebec last week, and there is money available towards metallurgical work and the various things required to do metallurgical work. So I'll be exploring some of that, but there's not a lot. Not a lot. It's very specific. I met with PwC, and he was telling me there's some other little bits and bobs of money, various places, but I don't have that knowledge. Eric, have any majors such as BHP or Rio Tinto manifested interest? What has been the deepest hole drilled on Surimo? You're correct. It was a 160-meter deep pierce point, Eric, to my knowledge. Majors such as BHP or Rio Tinto manifested interest. I've met with Glencore from the smelter point of view. Glencore is aware of our operations from the nickel point of view. BHP is watching. No Rio Tinto, nothing. And then peer level companies are aware of what we're doing. So I hope that answers your question, but there's nothing on paper yet, Eric. Give it time. Beverly, and we've still got time. Beverly, thoughts on your valuation and what are the catalysts for a re-rating of Renforth? Well, I think the valuation of Renforth is abysmal. What are the catalysts for re-rating? I don't see a major catalyst. I just see the market waking up to the junior space, and the property will speak for itself. The property is speaking for itself. People are reaching out and communicating, and it's not because of me. It's got nothing to do with me. It's the property speaking for itself, and I think it'll just get louder and louder as we have the ability to do more and more work. I'd like to bring critical mass to the ability to do work, but that's a different problem. So it's just continued work. Mateo asks, when are your next drill results expected for Surmo? Well, they're dribbling in. I would expect they would be released, if I had to guess, I'm going to tell you 3 or 4 weeks. I'm guessing. It's in the hands of the geologists. It's got nothing to do with me. Robin, how much U.S. investor interest is Renforth seeing? We have a number of U.S. shareholders. Bulk of our shareholders are in the province of Quebec. No surprise there, I suppose. But we have we have a number of U.S. investor interests. Adrian, how can I afford groceries if Renforth isn't paying you? Well, I buy ingredients. I don't buy groceries. I'm cheap. However, the serious answer to your question, Adrian, is how I got into this job. I'm a contractor in the exploration world. I worked in the Ring of Fire. We did the discovery work there. I've worked in Spain, reopening a polymetallic, in the Iberian Pyrite Belt, reopening a mine as for my father, actually, who's a very respected exploration geologist. So, as a contractor, I work for a number of clients. To this day, they're still out there running micro programs, but I know how to run a program on a budget very effectively with partners and our team members. And I don't make a glorious living, but I can buy groceries. With a better market and more clients, I'd make a better living, but maybe that day will come. So that is it for questions as I see it. Once again, we're a area play with exposure to the battery metals, gold, and maybe lithium. We'll see. We're an exploration story. We're very active. I over communicate. You can join the newsletter if you go to the website. Scroll down at the front page. You can join the newsletter. Eric, in Under the Wire, are there black shales in the area? Well, you could probably school me on this, Eric, because it's a conversation we've been going back and forth with. The drilling we did on the western end of the property, we saw more of the the graphitic shale, and it's black, interlayered at that end of the property than we have before. It's still fairly narrow, but again, we're drilling I'm sure our pierce point's maybe 75 vertical meters. It's not large flake graphite. I'll tell you that right now. Is it carbon or hard carbon or anything else? I don't know the answer to that yet. But it's an interesting question because it's a school of investigation, I'm told right now, in the world of geology. So yes, it's graphitic shale that's what we're seeing in the western end. Much more, we saw it. We used it as a marker horizon at Victoria. We always saw it. It's right beside the road. We'd see it on the south side of the anomaly, and the anomaly dips north. And then when we went to the western end with the larger anomaly, we just see layers of it over and over and over again. We don't know what it means yet. Again, this is in the hands of the geologists. So I'm at time now. I want to thank you all for joining me. You can reach out, Nicole at renforthresources.com. It's RFR on the CSE and RFRH on the OTCQB. And the website, once again, is renforthresources.com. So with that, I want to thank you all.